Why Peace Treaty 2020 Won't Work. October 10, 2019 by Anna von Reitz. Don't get me wrong. It's a fine idea, but for a treaty to be valid you need to have certain things straight, and as with everything else these guys are doing or attempting to do, they don't have the verbiage straight. They are still confused by the similar names deceit, and as a result, they keep making the same mistakes. As I observed about Phil Hudok. He didn't reclaim his rightful birthright as an American by his actions. He reclaimed his birthright as a British territorial United States citizen, as if he had been born in Guam. And that's why the King's courts are so willing to give him succor and relief as a poor pauper of the Commonwealth coming before the King's bench for relief, as in welfare relief. The same kinds of mistakes are self-evident in the Peace Treaty 2020 document, so that's a non-starter from the beginning. So that is one insurmountable issue. Another is that in order for a peace treaty to work and be valid, you have to have the correct parties signing it, and for the moment, that is as impossible now as it was 150 years ago. The American Civil War was a mercenary conflict fought on our soil by two opposing sets of federal service providers. The big dogs in the fight were the members of the Confederation formed by the Articles of Confederation in 1781, what we call the North and South, or the Union and the Confederacy. In fact, both the North and South were members of the original Confederacy, so it is more proper to think in terms of the Northern Confederation versus the Southern Confederation. It's also necessary to know that these Confederate states were not states in the sense that we typically think of the word, and also, were not our states of the Union. They were the original American states of states operating as businesses to provide our states and people with services at the federal level. So you have actual states that are members of our Federation of States, and you have states of states that are supposed to function as members of the Confederation. Apples and oranges. Actual states and states of states. It was the original states of states business organizations that fought the Civil War. So, the state of New York went to war with the state of South Carolina, for example, and these were the entities that conducted the entire war. You can easily prove this by looking at the war rosters of men being inducted into the service on both sides of the conflict. They were mustered out as companies representing the state of blank. These powerful business interests were the primary combatants, but both the territorial and municipal United States federal service providers also got involved. The territorial United States entity DBA, the United States of America, sided with the North. The municipal United States entity DBA, the United States, sided with the South. Thus, to have a valid peace treaty ending the conflict, the parties to it would have to be fighting an actual declared war, which they weren't, and all the parties would have to sign it, which is impossible because the Confederate States, both North and South, ceased functioning. The Northern Confederacy was bankrupted in 1863, and the Southern Confederacy was ruined and rendered unable to function by the Grand Army of the Republic, and neither one was ever reconstructed. So, the big dogs in the fight are no longer present and in a condition to sign a peace treaty, even if a peace treaty were the appropriate instrument to end a mercenary conflict, which it is not. What you are looking for is a peace accord similar to what they did in Vietnam. Their respective allies, the British Territorial United States DBA, the United States of America, and the Municipal United States DBA, the United States, are still present, but they've turned all this into a big joke and used it as an excuse to continue a totally bogus war on our shores ever since. Pending the reconstruction, of course. The reason that I call the continuing mercenary war between the British United States and the Municipal United States bogus is that they are both working for the Pope and always have been. The territorial government works for him indirectly, and the municipal government works for him directly, so the whole thing is a spoof played from both ends against the middle. The Queen manages the British Commonwealth for the Pope, so she is the Pope's employee in this matter, and the municipal government works directly for the Pope, so you are treated to the spectacle of two Roman Catholic business entities fighting each other for profit. And an entire civilian population owed their good faith and service being pillaged and plundered by their own employees using these specious excuses. So what you are actually looking for is called a peace accord, and in order to get it, you have to reconstruct the American states of states, both North and South. All right, well, the government of the people, by the people, and for the people is a living government composed of lawful persons defined as state citizens, living Americans who accept their public duty and populate the actual states of the Union by serving the state government in various capacities, jurors, deputies, justices, and so on. Our first obstacle is that thanks to continuing gross breach of trust on the part of the popes and British monarchs, we have all been deliberately misidentified and mischaracterized as either territorial United States citizens or municipal citizens of the United States. According to them, this entire country is populated by federal employees. And if you believe that, I have some Florida real estate to sell. This results in a situation wherein we have to go back and deliberately, knowingly correct our political status records. After we go through all that turkey trot and notify the United States Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, we can function as state citizens, can organize our actual states, and can then reconstruct the American states of states, both North and South. But even though we must do our best to accomplish this whole task of assembling our states and reconstructing our states of states, which we are doing, that is still no guarantee of peace. Why? Because the Pope, that diva of peace and love purportedly, continues to make commercial war against us under these deplorably and inexcusably false pretenses. His employee in this matter, Elizabeth II, continues on with the charade. His other employee in this matter, the Secretary General of the United Nations, is playing his part to AT and cannot be trusted to act as our trustee, a setup engineered by Jimmy Carter's administration, because he, Antonio Guterres, is a lifelong subject of the Pope. I almost burst out laughing when I heard Pope Francis sanctimoniously saying that we must obey the United Nations, that is, obey his employee, Antonio Guterres. It's the same game, folks. Whether it is the British Queen indirectly doing the Pope's bidding, or the Secretary-General of the United Nations indirectly doing the Pope's bidding. It all comes down to the gross malfunctioning of the Roman Curia and the Roman Catholic Church and the office of the Pope. If you want peace in this world, you have found the epicenter of perpetual war, the so-called church militant, and you now have a firmer grasp on what you are really dealing with. May all the Roman Catholics reading this wake up and realize just how despicable and two-faced the behavior of the Church has been on this and on many, many other occasions, and take action accordingly. May all the world leaders reading this wake up and deal with the situation at the United Nations, which is being primed as the new storefront for these hypocrites. May all the Americans reading this wake up and reclaim their political status as Americans. All of us who are not in the military nor in the federal civil service at this time are free to repudiate all claims that we are any species of federal citizen at all. Unless you all want to live under the thumb of the Inquisition and under the control of a dirty theocracy run by hypocrites, it's time to convince the Pope that the whole carefully planned setup is blown. And as for Mr. Trump? He can do what Andrew Johnson did, and create a binding commercial contract on the rats by 3 times declaring the peace in public. It will take a concerted effort on all our parts to ride herd on the members of Congress to make sure that such a peace is honored, but it can be done internally, and Mr. Guterres will be obligated to obey our internal peace accord. If they welch on it, every country in the world will know who to bomb and who to avoid as business partners and allies. The Brits appear to be waking up after a very long slumber, and so do the erstwhile members of the Commonwealth. We have 27 of our states of the Union assembled and populated, a majority position capable of conducting business for the United States of America. And more Americans are waking up to the clear and present danger every day. If you want peace, not only in our country, but throughout the world, get off your duffs, and start chewing on the elephant in the center of the dining room.